Chapter 7 of Free Air. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Free Air by Sinclair Lewis. Chapter 7, The Great American Frying Pan. It was Claire's first bad day since the hole in the mud. She had started gallantly, scooting along the level road that flies straight west of Fargo. But at noon she encountered a restaurant which made eating seem an evil. That they might have fair fame among motorists, the commercial club of Reaper had set at the edge of town a sign: "Welcome to Reaper, a live town. Speed limit 8 miles per hour." Being interpreted, that sign meant that if you went much over 20 miles an hour on the main street, people might glance at you, and that the real welcome, the only impression of Reaper that tourists were likely to carry away, was the welcome in the one restaurant. It was called the Eats Garden. As Claire and her father entered, they were stifled by a belch of smoke from the frying pan in the kitchen. The room was blocked by a huge lunch counter. There was only one table, covered with an oilcloth decorated with venerable spots of dried ink yolk. The waiter, cook, whose apron was gravy patterned with a border and stomacher of plain gray dirt, grumbled, "What do you want?" Claire sufficiently recovered to pick out the type from the fly specks on the menu, and she ordered a small steak and coffee for her father. For herself, tea, boiled eggs, toast. "Toast? We ain't got any toast." "Well, can't you make it?" "Oh, I suppose I could." When they came, the slices of toast were an inch thick, burnt on one side and raw on the other. The tea was bitter and the eggs watery. Her father reported that his steak was high-test rawhide, and his coffee, well, he wasn't sure just what substitute had been used for chicory, but he thought it was lukewarm quinine. Claire raged, "You know, this town really has aspirations. They're beginning to build such nice little bungalows, and there's a fine clean bank. Then they permit this scoundrel to advertise the town among strangers, influential strangers, in motors, by serving food like this. I suppose they think that they arrest criminals here, yet this restaurant man is a thief, to charge real money for food like this. Yes, and he's a murderer." "Oh, come now, Dolly." "Yes, he is, literally. He must, in his glorious career, have given chronic indigestion to thousands of people, shortened their lives by years. That's wholesale murder. If I were the authorities here, I'd be indulgent to the people who only murder one or two people, but imprison this cook for life. Really, I mean it." "Well, he probably does the best he does not. These eggs and this bread were perfectly good before he did black magic over them. And did you see the contemptuous look he gave me when I was so eccentric as to order toast? Oh, Reaper, Reaper, you desire a modern town, yet I wonder if you know how many thousands of tourists go from coast to coast cursing you. If I could only hang that restaurant man, and the others like him, in a rope of his own hempen griddle cakes. The Great American Frying Pan. I don't expect men building a new town to have time to read Hugh Walpole and James Branch Cabell, but I do expect them to afford a cook who can fry eggs." As she paid the check, Claire tried to think of some protest which would have any effect on the obese wits of the restaurant man. In face of his pink puffiness, she gave it up. Her failure as a citizeness fix-it sent her out of the place in a fury, carried her on in a dusty whirl till the engine spat, sounded tired and reflective, and said it guessed it wouldn't go any farther that day. Now that she had something to do, Claire became patient. "Run out of gas. Isn't it lucky I got that can for an extra gallon?" But there was plenty of gas. There was no discernible reason why the car should not go. She started the engine. It ran for half a minute and quit. All the plugs showed sparks. No wires were detached in the distributor. There was plenty of water, and the oil was not clogged. And that ended Claire's knowledge of the inside of a motor. She stopped two motorists. The first was sure that there was dirt on the point of the needle valve in the carburetor. While Claire shuddered lest he never get it back, he took out the needle valve, wiped it, put it back, and the engine was started again, and again, with great promptness, it stopped. The second Good Samaritan knew that one of the wires in the distributor must be detached, and, though she assured him that she had inspected them, he looked pityingly at her smart sports suit and said, "Well, I'll just take a look," and removed the distributor cover. He also scratched his head, felt of the fuses under the cowl, scratched his cheek, poked a finger at the carburetor, rubbed his ear, said, "Well, looked to see if there was water and gas, and sighed, 'Can't just seem to find out what's the trouble,' shot at his own car and escaped." Claire had been highly grateful and laudatory to both of them, but she remained here, 10 miles from nowhere. It was a beautiful place. Down a hill the wheat swam toward a village whose elevator was a glistening tower. Mud hens gabbled in a slew, alfalfa shone with unearthly green, and bees went junketing toward a field of red clover. But she had the motorist's fever to go on. The road behind and in front was very long, very white, and very empty. Her father, out of much thought and a solid ignorance about all of motoring beyond the hiring of chauffeurs and the payment of bills, suggested, "Dolly, have you looked to see if is the carburetor all right?" "Yes, dear, I've looked at it 3 times so far," she said, just a little too smoothly. On the hill 5 miles to eastward, a line of dust, then a small car. As it approached, the driver must have sighted her and increased speed. He came up at 35 miles an hour. "Now we'll get something done. Look, it's a bug, a flivver, or a teal or something. I believe it's the young man that got us out of the mud." Milt Daggett stopped, casually greeted them. "Why, hello, Miss Boltwood. Thought you'd be way ahead of me some place." "Meow," said Vere de Vere. What this meant, the historian does not know. "No, I've been taking it easy. Mr. I can't quite remember your name." "Milt Daggett. There's something mysterious the matter with my car. The engine will start, after it's left alone a while, but then it stalls. Do you suppose you could tell what it is?" "I don't know. I'll see if I can find out." "Then you probably will. The other 2 men knew everything. One of them was the inventor of wheels, the other discovered skidding, so of course they couldn't help us." Milt added nothing to her frivolity, but his smile was friendly. He lifted the round rubber cap of the distributor. Then Claire's faith tumbled in the dust. Twice had the wires been tested. Milt tested them again. She was too tired of botching to tell him he was wasting time. "Got an oil can?" He hesitated. Through a tiny hole in the plate of the distributor he dropped 2 drops of oil. Only 2 drops. "I guess maybe that's what it needed. You might try her now and see how she runs," he said mildly. Dubiously, Claire started the engine. It sang jubilantly, and it did not stop. Again was the road open to her. Again was the settlement over there, to which it would have taken her an hour to walk, only 6 minutes away. She stopped the engine, beamed at him, there in the dust on the quiet hilltop. He said as apologetically as though he had been at fault, "Distributor got dry. Might give it a little oil about once in 6 months." "We are so grateful to you. Twice now you've saved our lives." "Oh, I guess you'd have gone on living. And if drivers can't help each other, who can? That's a good start toward world fellowship, I suppose. I wish we could return your lunch, or Mr. Daggett, do you read books? I mean." "Yes, I do, when I run across them." "Maybe I can lend you these 2 that I happen to have along. I've finished them, and so has father, I think." From the folds of the strapped down top she pulled out Compton Mackenzie's Youth's Encounter and Vachel Lindsay's Congo. With a curious faint excitement she watched him turn the leaves. His blunt fingers flapped through them as though he was used to books. As he looked at Congo he exclaimed, "Poetry! That's fine! Like it, but I don't hardly ever run across it. I'm terribly obliged." His clear face lifted, sun brown and young and adoring. She had not often seen men look at her thus. Certainly Jeff Saxton's painless worship did not turn him into the likeness of a knight among banners. Yet the good Geoffrey loved her, while to Milt Daggett she could be nothing more than a strange young woman in a car with a New York license. If her tiny gift could so please him, how poor he must be. He probably lives on some barren farm.